Hey, Rockets Round Robin fans, Matt Slaughter here, aka Mr. Negative, here with your weekly Houston Rockets check-in. We had a clean sweep last week, 4-0, wins over the Cavs twice, Boston, and most recently at Atlanta in the makeup game for the ice storm that happened in Atlanta early January. So we have a lot of data to work with. Some interesting trends are happening. I think a couple things are confirming some observations I had last week. But ultimately, I think we should all be pleased with the progress on the offensive side of the ball. As it's not like this offense has been predicated completely on a hot streak from Jalen Green at this point. Other guys are stepping up to make a more balanced effort. You got Amin, recording a triple-double, two stellar performances last week, one against Cleveland, one against Boston. Şengün rounding into form, beginning to finish better at the rim, better at the free throw line. And then you're getting contributions from other guys. Dylan Brooks, obviously, a little bit outlier game in Boston, but you're going to get a good role player game. I'd say every other game, probably. Fred's been steady. And Tari's played well off at the bench in his time. And we didn't get a lot of Cam Whitmore last week because he had a stomach bug. But it's good that the offense was still chugging along even without having a key piece. So let's dive into it and let's see what we got. Across the board here, last week, 10th in offensive rating, 12th in true shooting, 7th in three-point percentage, 22nd in assist-to-turnover ratio, 4th in rebound percentage, 23rd in pace. Again, so I think two things are contributing to this pace factor, and they're both offensive rebounds. It's the offensive rebounds that we're giving up and the offensive rebounds we're getting. I think it's artificially capping our pace. So I think we're playing at a much faster pace than 23rd. And, it's just that we're getting a lot of offensive rebounds still, and we're giving up a lot of offensive rebounds now, unfortunately. So I think that's slowing the pace further, even though it seems like we are playing faster. So I wouldn't worry about the pace number. It's, I have it here just as the data ticks along here, and we'll see if we stop rebounding as well, or we start rebounding better on defense. Does that number go up? My suspicion is yes. So we'll see how that works out. Offensively, look, we're having a balanced approach. We are 7th in three-point shooting. Like I said, the Dylan Brooks game probably carrying that number a bit. I know Jalen had like 2 good shooting games, 2 bad shooting games, and for his volume, that's he how his shooting does is going to affect how the team shooting is. Fred, like I said, was steady, and so we finished 7th. And since Amin's been in the starting lineup, the three-point shooting has been very good. Again, I think there's some correlation to that. I think there's some correlation with Jalen just shooting them out of his mind for a month. But the other correlation is, I think, and I know that other people have alluded to this, and I know like Frank's talked about it, AK's talked about it. Inserting Amin in for one of Jabari or Dylan was just going to bring more passing. So while the shooting, in theory, right, we were going to have less spacing, but the fact that we were having more passing and that Jalen has been a better catch and shoot guy, we now have Fred, Jalen, and Dylan who can receive and finish catch and shoot threes with Şengün and Amin, making good passes. That is increasing our three-point percentage because we're getting better looks, in my opinion, and we have the right guys taking them. When you insert Jabari in for Amin, now we have basically 3 guys who are standing around who aren't really plus passers at all, between Jalen, Dylan, and Jabari. And so you're relying on Fred to create everything, and he's just not good enough at this point to create the advantages needed on his own to get everyone good shots. So I think that if you sub out Brooks for Jabari, I don't think it's going to change anything. Well, I think the three-point percentage might go up. I know Brooks just had the 10 3-point game. I think Jabari is a better shooter than Brooks, though. And I think you would see Jabari take Brooks's role in the offense as the 3, and then you would see him then go back to the 4 on defense, and that would make an interesting dynamic on the other end, because now does the 4 guard Jabari on when we're on offense? And if so, Amin's still in the dunker spot. That is leaving a wing as a help defender at the rim. I suspect that our rim percentage would go up. We'd start finishing better. Or maybe they'd switch it and they'd have the 3 guard Jabari and the 4 guard Amin. And then they have similar issues to what they're doing now, where Amin's just outrunning, whoever the 4 is, and he's just a better athlete. I mean, he's a better athlete than anyone, but he's a better athlete than whoever the 4 is for sure. And it's just creating a lot of problems. So, I think this offensive uptick is sustainable. I'm not sure, I don't think we're 7th in shooting, 3-point shooting, but we're probably closer to like 15th than we are 26th on the season. So now that we're getting the right guys in the right places, I feel like it's all kind of falling into place. And now we're talking about a team that is going to be less reliant on its transition game, less reliant on its offensive rebounds to score. I know the half-court offense still hasn't clicked. We're still in the bottom third for sure, probably closer to like the bottom than we are to the like top end of that. I think we're like 26th. We need to be closer to 20th, I think, if we're going to make room in the make some real noise in the playoffs. But all that being said, I think it's trending that way, and I think we will see the numbers start to tick in that direction. But the bottom line is, with all that said, there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it low-hanging fruit, but we're basically beating teams without a real half-court offense, and we're beating the best teams. I mean, we just went 6-0 against Memphis, Boston, and Cleveland. I mean, it's pretty good, guys. And so I think there's a lot of room for this team to grow, and we should all be pretty excited about that. The other thing is, compared to last week, I would say we're clearly finishing better, and I think that has a little bit to do with what I was talking about earlier. I think that'll improve if they swap Jabari and Dylan, to be honest with you. I think it'll create some defensive confusion. And then the other issue is that, it's not really an issue, but, Şengün's been finishing better lately too. And, so that's going to help the true shooting percentage. Jalen and Şengün are going to drive that, and that's just what it is. The assist to turnover ratio, still pretty low and worse than it's been for most of the year. Again, Jalen and Şengün are going to drive this by and large. Amin really picked up the playmaking last week, I would say. Whether that's sustainable, we'll see. But, those 3 are going to have to take care of the ball, and that is going to drive what our assist to turnover percentage is between those 3. And frankly, if Amin could step up his playmaking, I think that would make me feel a lot more comfortable about the offense. For all the steps that Jalen's made, he has not made the step in playmaking. I know his assists have increased a little bit, but and then he has a 0 assist, 7 turnover game against the Hawks. And I know no one really had juice that game. Everyone was tired. A lot of excuses, but you can't go 0 at 7. It just can't happen. And Şengün's still turning over the ball too much too. So they got a lot to clean up there. But offense is still doing good. So I think there's a lot to be positive about moving forward. Now the 3-point percent, or the defensive percentage here, we've seen this, and it's been falling precipitously since over the last month. And again, it coincides with the men going into the lineup. My theory is that it really is just that's just a coincidence. I don't think it's a cause of it. But anyway, last 7, we were 114th in D rating, 53.5 effective field goal percentage, almost dead last in 3-point frequency. Didn't get steals, and our rebounding got a little worse. So part of this is because we played Cleveland twice and Boston. Those are the 3 highest 3-point shooting teams in the league, and OKC. So the 3-point frequency, I'm not too upset about. What I am pleased with is that it didn't completely break our defense. We were still solid enough defensively, even though we were giving up a ton of threes. And I would even say, I'd venture to say that even though we were 28th and 46.5, percentage-wise is high, but Boston only took like 39 threes in the game against them. In the first game against Cleveland, I think they only took 38. I would imagine that is substantially lower than those two teams' normal amount. So I would say job well done on that. Now, I think Cleveland shot 41 the second night, and they shot a lot better. And, part of that is they're a great shooting team. They're going to figure it out. But the one thing that I am interested in is how this defense works during the playoffs. In my experience, limiting the volatility in a regular season game is going to win you more games. But in the playoffs, I think limiting easy baskets is better, especially as the series goes on longer. You have more tired legs. It just becomes harder to shoot. So I wonder if we're going to have a philosophical change in the playoffs. Or is our defense just going to be creative enough to say, okay, look, we have a 7-game series against Minnesota. This is what they do well. This is what we need to stop. And we're able to just impose our will onto them for that 7-game series. And if they're uncomfortable shooting at the rim, we force them to do that. If they're uncomfortable shooting threes, we force them to do that. I know that Minnesota's picked up their 3-point shooting a lot this year on the back of Anthony Edwards' uptick. So anyway, that is something I'm interested in. We'll see how that pans out. Again, I've always thought that this was kind of a regular season defense, and whether it's a great defense in the playoffs, we'll see. It's certainly not because we don't have the personnel, but the personnel is young. But you see, guys are just, they're playing hard. And then the other thing is, they're not making, they just don't make the mistakes that characteristically young teams make. Ime's kind of beaten that out of them to an extent. And then a lot of it comes down to Şengün. And you look at the fourth quarter against the Celtics, and this is where it's like the good and the bad of what Şengün can do. The first 6 minutes of that he was in, I think he came in like 9-minute mark or something, 10-minute mark, and he was making awesome rotations. But given the way that he has to play and how he has to hedge hard, how he has to go and play on the perimeter, just in case, sometimes guys don't get over screens well enough and you just have to switch it. He's blitzing ball handlers. He's having to be active in terms of rotations. He's really running at shooters. But then the last 4 minutes, he's gassed because he can only play like that for like 6-minute stretches. And then it just takes a toll on him. It takes a toll mentally and physically. And I don't know that that's going to change this year. So if we're going to ask Şengün to do that, and that's what Şengün, and if that's truly what Şengün has to do against elite offenses like Boston, how do we marry the two together so that he can conserve some energy? Or he's got to play more than 24 minutes a game, right? Or we're just not using him correctly. So I think trying to figure that out is something that is going to be an ongoing battle with him so long as he's a cornerstone of this team. And that, people may not want to hear that. I don't really care. It just is what it is. The stock number really low. That's two things. One, less shots at the rim means more threes, means less blocks. So that's part of it. Two, Boston and Cleveland are both pretty good at taking care of the ball. We had less chances for steals, in addition to the fact that the pace was slower, so there's less opportunities to get steals. I'm not all that concerned about it. Sure, it would be great if they, I would look at it. Did they force more turnovers than they usually do, than Boston usually has? Or same with Cleveland. Did they do that? If they did that, they did their job. So don't be concerned about it. If it's a trend and you're starting to see the activity level go down, or we're not getting as many steals, or we're not helping them weak side blocks, then that's something to take note of. But 1 week against those teams, I'm not going to fret about it. All that being said, very positive. 4-0, gritted out wins, held on, did what they needed to do. This team is starting to win close games, and that is a hallmark of a team that can make a deep playoff run. Now, they're going to have to change some things probably in the playoffs. They're going to have to make adjustments, and they're going to have to execute better on offense at the end of games. But a lot to be proud of, a lot to be happy about, and this team continues to get better each and every week, and that's what we love to see. Well, we have 3 or 4 more games this week. We'll dive into it next week, see what we see, and then it'll be the All-Star break. So I'll let y'all later.